It's June 8th, 2018, and this video's introductory overview of a 67 Mustang that I picked up. Mustang project that I think I'll call it California Pony. It's a 67 Coupe that I picked up from California. So we'll give it a look over as to its overall condition, what it's going to need, and what I'd like to do with it. One thing, looking for this New York State where I live, looking for a project car, a lot of these old Mustangs are just completely Swiss cheese because of the salt and then sitting around for years outside, perhaps with the moisture, and that everything's rotted out. The floor, not just the floor pans, because that's not that big a deal, but all the frame rails, the Fender Aprons, the cowl. Sometimes there's just pretty much almost nothing left to the car, and even though all the parts are available, you basically have to build a brand new car from scratch, which is really only worth it if it's maybe a special value car, special engine combination in that, where the car has some real value if you're going to put that kind of time and money into it. So anyways, I went the route of having a car shipped from California. You're going to see why as we look over the condition of this car. I've owned a couple Mustang convertibles. 65 Mustang convertible was my first car, and recently owned another 65 convertible. And of course the fastbacks are really popular. But as far as the coupes go, I found that the 67 and 68 Mustang coupes, I've always liked the styling on those. I like how, in contrast with the 65s, they redid the rear window area here. The chrome's not on here right now, but they've got kind of a recess here, and it gives it I think a much more sporty look and roof line around the rear window. So I've always liked the styling on these coupes, and some of them actually have a real history. Carroll Shelby, they actually made some Trans Am 67 Mustangs with the coupe style. But anyways, let's start to look at the condition of this car. Like I mentioned, we'll look at the positive on this car is really just how solid it is. And it's always interesting to look at a car because it's kind of like an archaeological expedition because of the things you see. For example, this car, it's still got the original. By the way, it's still got the original door on the driver's door and the original door tag, which is a real plus. But it's got the warranty tag there, which gives you all the information on what the car originally was. For example, here you see the sunshine yellow. This is actually the original color on the car, and it was a 289 two-barrel. It's a C-code car, and it was actually a 3-speed manual transmission. Along the way, it got converted to a lot of things happen over the years. So by the way, this isn't going to be a restoration to original factory. It wouldn't be that valuable. It'd be a kind of a neat car. I've always liked the sunshine yellow as far as a California car, especially if it had the tinted glass. And it's kind of interesting, a 3-speed standard. But that's gone. That's history. The engine's been changed. It's got a 289, another 289 in it that's been modified to give it more performance, as well as the FMX automatic transmission, which wasn't an option on the 67 Mustang. It's a little bit more, slightly more recent transmission, and so that was converted too. But anyways, the car has been painted. It was originally sunshine yellow, and then at one point it was changed to red, and this is the evidence of the overspray on that, the red paint job, which was the most recent extensive kind of redo on the car, which was really quite a while ago. I can tell by looking it over. And that's probably when most of the like performance upgrades and that were made to the car. So basically the car, it had the original sunshine yellow, and then it was repainted red once. And that's basically it, except for now, you know, this car has been sitting around for many years in California, and now it's got primer over the red. But that's basically as far as the history on the paint. Now interestingly, just poking around, cleared out a little bit of the gunk on the floor and stuff, and I found this very interesting. Really like digging around, but look at the rear floor pan here. That actually looks, I believe that's sunshine yellow overspray here on the floor. And it's very rare to find a Mustang with which the original floor pans in it. To give you an idea of the condition of this car, as you go through, you'll see it's very solid. But just to give you an idea on the floor pans on these, how easily they would rust out. As I mentioned, my first car was a '65 Mustang convertible that I bought back. Was an 11 years old car. I bought in 1976, and being in western New York, it actually had already, the floor pan in it, a couple sections of it actually already rusted out. And what was common back in those days was the auto parts stores, they stock sheet metal, and just being a teenager, what you would do, you get a car like that, you just cut out a piece of sheet metal, and then you'd pop rivet it in, and then you'd throw some undercoat on it. And that's what I did on that car back in the day. So to me, it's amazing to see a car, you know, here's a car that's over 50 years old, and to have its original floor pans in it in that condition is just amazing to me. Because I can remember being in my '65 Mustang and actually having a hole back here, an actual hole, and putting sheet metal in it just to patch it up. Well, little minor things. I think this isn't from rust. Somebody did something stupid, which, you know, these things happen over the years on a car. I'm going to show you a few things that I would put in that classification as not too swift things that were done to the car. But this looks to me like maybe somebody put a hook here when it was shipped at some point, you know, as a tie down. And of course, being just a sheet metal floor pan, it's not strong enough for that, and it actually tore here. But you know, I can fix that. It's no big deal. And then for some reason in the tunnel here, at some point somebody cut a hole there to fix that. You know, but overall, you know, I spent some time. Ford originally put this kind of black gunk that, you know, over 50 years it dries out. But you can see some of it here. I've been, you know, I took a scraper and just popped it up and everything to see the original pop rivets here. Pop rivets here, because that's all gonna come out. I'll put seam sealer on there to replace that original gunk, but I left some of it on here and just to document, to show you the condition of the floor. It's kind of neat to see that original stuff. Here's an example in the corner here. That's all dried out and loose, and it's solid under there. I'll just, you know, remove that and clean it all up nice and repaint everything to preserve it. But it's kind of neat to see and document that original Ford stuff there. So floor pan's solid. Now this passenger side door, I'll show you that with the green on it. This was taken from another car. It's not an original door to the car. You can tell just by the paint not having any of that sunshine yellow or anything, but it is an original Ford door. It's not one of those aftermarket repops. and it's solid. There's no rust on it. You know, it's really nice. And actually, that's another thing. We'll talk about that for a minute. Kind of wandering around here, but just getting an overview of this car. The gaps on this car are really very good, which I really like. So you get these aftermarket panels made in China, you know, from these different stampings, and you look on YouTube, the amount of work a lot of times to get a nice gap and a nice match on those panels is just incredible. And if you don't take the time to do that, you have a less than satisfactory job when you're done. But this isn't going to be a problem. These are going to be nice. The gap here is only a problem because when they put this door on, it's dropped in the front. You see the gap up here with the window, and so you bring this door up in the front where it should be, and it'll have a real nice gap with the front fender. Like you got the hood with the louvers in it. These gaps are going to be real nice on the hood and the fenders. I like that, real nice. You can do a little adjustment on the hood height, but a lot of times on the Mustangs you'll get kind of a bow in the hood here, and the fender will be flatter, and so you've even seen some $150,000 Shelbys and stuff, and you'll have a kind of a bow here, and you don't get the real nice match. But this looks pretty good. I like that. I've even seen original Ford commercials from 1965, and they got this white coupe driving, you know, a factory car, early production, and it actually even has that gap. You know, it's been said that sometimes that arch in the hood can increase over the years if the hinges aren't lubed, and there's a lot of resistance. You go to close the hood, you can actually increase the bow in the hood and get an even more of a rise there. But anyways, I like this hood has a nice fit. Let's look at the front here. Again, you've got overspray from some of your original Sunshine Yellow. Nice. This fender I haven't investigated fully yet. I don't see the Sunshine Yellow. It's possible it was changed at some point. I've got to look into that more. Maybe when they painted it the red. But to me, at first glance anyway, this appears to be a genuine Ford fender. Here's your original driver's door. You won't be able to see this too good, and it's been painted over. It's got paint over it, but this is, I don't know why people do that, but you know, a lot of things happen over the years. This is the original warranty tag with all your information, your transmission, the interior. Originally this was black interior, and so there's the original door. Real nice to have that. Again, there's your Sunshine Yellow. These are the original quarter panels, and we'll take a look in the trunk. Very solid. But before we do that, I just want to show you the negative. Again, here's your Sunshine Yellow around your windshield, and your red. If you look at the roof here, you know, when somebody put one of those aftermarket sunroofs in years ago, you know, the first time I ever saw them, you know, even as a teenager in the late 70s, early 80s perhaps, these were popular. There was a kit you could get, and the first time I ever saw one, it just made me cringe, especially if it was done to a nice car. You know, I didn't mind. Sometimes I saw a Vega. I remember somebody had put one in, and it's like, well, it's just a Vega. But you take a car like this Mustang and chop up the roof, it's a shame. And the thing about it too, the sheet metal, especially this front part of the roof, the sheet metal isn't supported by the, you see under there, you got your brace, and the sheet metal is not really thick, and so you cut this up, and it's, look at the flex in that. It was just a nightmare, you know, if anybody ever did anything like that. So that's one of the big negatives with this car. It's gonna be a problem. I'm tossing around a few different ideas. Since the car is never going to be a factory stock again, it's possible it's going to be a lot of work, but I might even put a real sunroof system in it. I've already got an idea about that. Or, you know, just go back and restore this roof. You know, close it back up again the way it should be. But that's going to be a bit of work, so that's a negative. You know, the things people do, young kid, because while we're on that note, kind of the same thing, maybe at the same time they did that sunroof, they had to have their sound system, so they actually cut out here on the rear deck so that they could have 4 6x9 speakers. So they carved up that original metal there. You know, I have to figure what I'm going to do with that, but another example of maybe that exuberance of youth, and you're going to have your hot rod, you know, with the sunroof. And but actually, some of the performance things they did to the car, maybe at that time, I like. So we'll look at that in a minute. But talking about my sunroof idea, I'm a Saab tech, retired, worked on Saabs for, you know, maybe 20 years, and they have a real nice sunroof system, and you can pick up an old 900 or 9.3, and I already measured the dimensions on it. I believe it'll work. You know, I had a little more checking on that, but here's an old 9.3 I've got. There's the sunroof on it. Interestingly enough, the cutout on this, I already measured it. This is the same dimensions as the cutout on that Mustang. But I've thought about picking up an old, you can get these cars so cheap now, you know, an old junk or parts car, and, you know, remove the entire sunroof system and do it right. You know, if I do it that way, if I go to a power sunroof and use one of these, I'd do the whole thing right. You know, even you've got water drains in each corner, you know, tubes inside the car to drain the water that will naturally get in here, as opposed to those cheap manual kits. They always leaked, you know, just a nightmare. Anyways, it's just a thought. It'd be a lot of work, but it kind of intrigues me. And like I said, the car is never going to be a factory restoration. You know, that's not the idea with this project I'm doing. And I've seen some nice coupes done with the sunroof. And I don't really mind that. Some people, they wouldn't want a sunroof, but taking away from the originality of the car. It's actually a few Mustangs, very few. I remember a couple that actually have factory sunroof. They were like special delivery cars. There was one being given away in a contest. I think it might have been a 69. It was 69 fastback of some kind of Mach 1 or something, I forget. But it actually had a factory sunroof in it, factory power sunroof from Ford, but extremely rare. It was only in special production. I don't think it was available as an option from the dealer. So some people might not like the idea at all of even if it's done right. But again, I don't mind on a car that's never going to be a factory resto. This is going to be just a nice driver with some performance. While we're talking about that, let me show you the engine. You know, at some point, maybe when they did the red repaint on it, somebody did quite a lot of work with this engine. It's kind of neat. Got some surface rust and things on it now, but It's got these chrome Edelbrock valve covers. The carburetor says Edelbrock on it, but it's a Weber carburetor. I have to look up. I'm not sure what CFM is on it, but a nice 4-barrel, and it's got the Edelbrock Performer 289 intake. It's got headers on it and a complete full exhaust system out the back with chrome 3-inch tips on it that I believe I can get the surface rust off of them. Kind of neat too, somebody put a chrome brace here. These were available. These really needed extra rigidity between the shock towers, so I like that. And at the time, this has got a lot of surface rust on it now, but your body brace there is a chrome one. But I'm guessing that this engine probably has. I'm told that that it's a 289 block, not the original one to the car, and that it's been bored out to make it a 302 engine. I'm guessing since it's got some performance modifications such as the carburetor and the intake and the headers. I'm guessing it's got a mild cam and get a little more horsepower and performance out of this engine. So that's kind of neat. I like that. Anxious to get it running soon. It's going to be one of the early things I do so I can move the car around. I believe it does run. It right now it's got a fuel issue. Probably everything's all gummed up and varnished. Somebody changed that fuel pump not too long ago. So we'll get her running. Kind of interesting wheels on there. My favorite aftermarket wheels have always on a car like this would be like the Krager SS mags. I always liked those. But back in the day, I always liked. I thought center lines were kind of neat, especially if a car was really modified nicely. 69 Camaro or something with center lines on them, or Mustang. Those are neat. And these kind of remind me of the center lines. They're all corroded in the middle, but the actual rim part here is in nice shape still, and that middle part can probably be resurfaced. So I kind of like these wheels. Here's these huge, I'm guessing I actually didn't put a tape measure on them, but I'm guessing they're 3-inch chrome tips, if not bigger. But it's got, I think that's the original rear end to the car. I think it was 2.80 to 1. The gear ratio, I haven't checked yet if it's still got the same gear ratio. Somebody put an aftermarket rear sway bar on here, and I think those are air shocks as well. And they put these. Oh, by the way, I do have the rear panel for this. It was an add-on. It's got the cutouts. Cutouts for the exhaust. I like that, and it's in good shape still. At some point, again, one of the things I don't really like, they put these spring lifts in the back here, and they stick below the body line. Even though I do like the current ride height to the car, although a little lower than this in the back, I think might be just right. But anyways, I never liked these sticking out below the body lines on a car. Back in the day, it was kind of popular way to jack up the back of a car. I never really liked these, so I'm going to do something about that. It may be that I've got to rebuild these springs, because I think they've lost a lot of their tension. And if I replace this back here, or cut this one down, I may not get enough height in the back. But I definitely don't like this here. It takes away from the look in the back. It's always a tight fit with these cutouts and the exhaust and the shackle. It's just the way it is originally from Ford. These would be shorter, but they still are always close to your dual exhaust. And the cutout comes right over to here. So you want to get these centered in the cutout, but when you do, they'll be very close to hitting the spring shackle. That's just the way it's made, I think, with the clearance of the gas tank and everything. But we'll take care of that. Taking a look in the trunk, everything. I mean, it looks nasty, but everything is solid back here. You know, to me, it's a pleasure to see. I've seen some of the work people have gone through. All this stuff's available, but replacing, you know, these rear trunk pan, you know, inner fenders. You got surface rust on these quarters, but I've looked down in here, everything's solid. Even the drops here, which always rust out, are solid. These rear frame rail, I mean, it's solid as rock. It's such a pleasure to see all this, because it's going to save so much work on this car to not have to do all that major panel replacing. Original, here's one of your original wheels, the sunshine yellow. Spare tire, old bias ply. Basically, it's going to be a lot of cleaning stuff up, but I'm really happy with how solid everything is on this car. California car makes a big difference. Here's some of your stuff here where you got your B&M. I don't know if it's got B&M shift kit perhaps in the automatic transmission. You never know. Did have a set of gauges that I've got in a box. The automator sticker and MSD ignition has been updated. Legal for sale and installation. I don't know if you can see that in California. MSD ignition. Originally the car came with points, so it's a nice upgrade. One of the things I never liked, unless it's, you know, a fully modified car, I never liked, you know, fender flares on a car that weren't. I like the factory lines on a car. So even if a car is modified to give it some more performance, I always like the factory body. You know, like I say, unless the whole idea is you're doing a real more radical car. But anyways, they did a common thing in the day under here to fit bigger tires, the clearance. People would roll, they cut slits, and see, normally it would be flat like this all the way up. They cut slits and they what they call rolling it. They would roll, and that's what they did on this. You could feel the metals here. They rolled it up. It gained you a little bit more clearance on the tires, and they did that with this. So you know that doesn't bother me. It's not visible, so I'm gonna leave that the way it is. And there's some of your sunshine yellow underneath there. I always find that interesting, the history. Same thing, you can see around the back window. You've got the yellow, and then you've got that red repaint. So anyways, a nice solid Mustang here. The important, got your original VIN number. This is your original. Again, this is something that commonly rots out on these Mustangs. Your Fender Aprons, and these are solid still. These are original Fender Aprons. They're very solid. Another thing, people would often, you know, early the grease fittings on the upper control arms, you couldn't get at them. So shops they take their torch and they cut a hole here in the front and the back of the you know, your shock tower here to get at those grease fittings. But this is nice to see that they never modified that. And Fender apron solid, frame solid, all this stuff. Your radiator support is solid. Important here, your front frame rail. A lot of times they'll rust out here in the front where the bumper brackets mount, but this is all solid. Torque boxes, everything underneath is solid. All this stuff is just fantastic. You know, I'm excited about that. The amount of time that that's going to save on this project to have basically solid body that just needs to be cleaned up is awesome. So to me, to have this car shipped from California, it's fairly expensive, but you actually, in the long run, if you get a solid car like this, granted the car needs a lot of work, but all the real heavy duty work that this car would need, it doesn't. It's all original. You know, all your frame, your floors, body panels, fender aprons, you know, your rear trunk area, all that. So, you know, the big negatives on the car is that, you know, atrocious sunroof. But, you know, that's fixable. Just take more time. And other than that, I like it. It's a nice project. that's a brief overview on the car. I think early on what I'm going to do, I want to give the car a little bit of its dignity back. I'd like to actually get it running, get it where it can move around, and in the short term I'd like to make it a daily driver. Get it functioning, running again, get it where to pass a New York State inspection, and make it a daily driver I could take to work next summer.